Walking into his room, Han sat down at his computer and pulled up a random video to watch. As Han watched the video, he thought about how he fell into this situation. He remembered walking into his apartment where he and his girlfriend Beth lived and noticing the extra pair of sneakers by the entrance. Slowly, his eyes raised, and Han saw the trail of various articles of clothing strewn across the floor, leading to the bedroom. Even though Han was a reasonably intelligent individual, the image didn't seem to fit together, and he attempted to create mundane scenarios that would explain all of this. Maybe his girlfriend was heading into the shower and didn't wait until she was in their bedroom. This would explain some of the clothing, but didn't solve the other apparel and other sneakers at the entrance. Han could feel his heart starting to beat slightly faster, as if it already figured out what was going on before his brain did. As he entered the apartment, his heart felt as if it was going to explode out of his chest. Getting closer to the bedroom, Han could hear the sounds of moaning and squeaking of the bed. A rhythmic thudding could be heard, sounding like a heavy object hitting the wall right after the bed squeaked. His hand seemed to have a life of its own as it moved towards the door handle and slowly opened it. A slight noise was made as the door was opened, and for some reason he thought that he needed to get some kind of lubricant and apply it to the hinges. It was such an inconsequential thing to think about as the image of his girlfriend riding on top of his best friend came into view. His best friend glanced over at him with a look of surprise. "Oh shit," Sam called out. Han's girlfriend, soon-to-be ex-girlfriend, glanced behind her to see what Sam was shouting about and saw Han standing in the doorway. Her expression was identical to Sam's, though it was quickly replaced with a hot wash of shame. Han didn't know what he was supposed to do in this scenario. He had watched it on various TV shows and adult content. Now, this is how those people felt, Han thought as he remembered some hentai video with NTR content in it. Though he always knew on an intellectual level that NTR was a hurtful genre, Han thought that the material was drastically better than other types regarding quality content. The idea that he would be in this position never seemed to cross his mind, and now that he was, Han felt a little empathetic towards those characters. Looking towards his ex-girlfriend as she desperately tried to put on clothes and erase everything that happened, Han said, "The funeral was really well done. I'm glad that my older brother was able to put everything together, because I don't think I would have been able to arrange the funeral of my parents." Beth's hands went to cover her mouth as she listened to Han recount his parents' funeral. "I'm glad you're feeling better and don't have a stomach ache," Han casually mentioned, a numbness slowly crawling out from deep within, making it feel as if everything was happening to someone else. "Han, I can explain this," Beth stammered, walking towards him awkwardly. Seeing her heading closer to him and glancing at Sam laying on his bed, Han said, "I'm going to get some food for myself. If you could, I'd greatly appreciate if both of you were gone by the time I get back. Beth, you can take as much of your stuff as you can and leave your key behind. Since your name is on the lease, you don't need to worry about this month's rent. I hope that you can be happy with Sam, so please, don't try to contact me, either of you." After saying his piece, Han turned towards the door and walked out of the apartment, leaving the door open. He could hear Beth sobbing while Sam was trying to comfort her, telling her that everything was for the better. Han stared at his food as he sat in a booth at his favorite local Asian restaurant. This establishment had great food at a low cost. A simple beef dish with vegetables and fried rice cost around $7.50, and fountain drinks were about an extra $1. The people that worked at the establishment knew him by name, considering how often he would stop by here, either by himself or with Beth. Thinking about how many sweet memories he made with her at this restaurant, talking about various nerdy things, made him feel numb. The usual, what could I have done? And, was this my own fault? Went through his mind. Considering that finding out his girlfriend was cheating on him was par for the course, he congratulated himself on handling this a lot better compared to previous times. Chuckling to himself self-deprecatingly, Han said, I guess it gets better each time? Though this one does take the cake with walking in to see it, compared to hearing it by third parties. A part of him thought it was amusing how this all happened on the same day he buried his parents. Seeing his parents lying in their coffins still hadn't quite hit him yet, and he had a detached feeling about everything. Han pondered whether this day's feeling helped contribute to his mild reaction to seeing his best friend fucking his girlfriend's brains out. The irony of him enjoying Ahegor and NTR hentai and walking in on such a scenario wasn't lost on him. If it was a different guy, he admitted that he'd find it hilarious. As he chewed on the food, savoring the various flavors and glad that at least one thing was going right for the day, Han thought he heard a ringing noise. As it got louder, his head started to feel like it was being squeezed by a vice. The fork in his hand fell onto the floor, though Han didn't hear the clattering of the utensil as it hit the floor. After the pain had receded, Han looked up to see a screen in front of him. Congratulations! Based on the miserable life you've had, and being able to stack so many horrible memories in one day while keeping a cool head, you have been selected to gain the creation ability. With this, you'll be able to manipulate a wide range of things and gain access to areas that no human has had access to. You are free to do whatever you wish, so please do not feel chained to the common sense in your world and other burdens. This ability was selected to give you a wide range of experiences, and there are no requirements or strings attached to this ability. We just ask you try out new things and have fun with this ability. To access the creation ability, just imagine opening up a menu. Feeling a little confused by all of this, Han dismissed the screen by swiping his hand across it. Thinking this was very silly and just his brain designed to break, he decided to give it a try and see what would happen. At the very least, Han would feel silly and would request the waitress to bring him a new fork to replace the one he had dropped earlier. He closed his eyes and tried to concentrate on opening up a menu. Feeling like there was something different about his body, he felt like something had changed, so he opened his eyes and saw a floating display. The content of the screen went over his personal information, such as his name. It also gave him a title, but he was unsure of why it listed as Creator. There were additional options appearing like buttons Han could press. The 3 buttons were listed as Create, Modify, and Translate. The menu looked very basic compared to what he imagined it would look like, especially in games and anime manga. Looking at the first 2, Create and Modify, they seemed to be self-explanatory. Han didn't know what the last one, Translate, meant, considering the multiple meanings of the word. Deciding to see what this option was all about, Han pushed on Translate and saw a new menu appear. It displayed 2 options, Destination and Object. Just by guessing, Han determined that the word translate was similar to the mathematical concept, not the linguist form of the word. After pressing Destination, a new menu appeared. Just like when he pressed Translate, new buttons appeared. The main title was Select Destination, with more options below it. Within Current Area, Alternate Area, and Advanced Selection. Pressing advanced selection, Han was presented with a wide range of choices that could be shortened by certain criteria, and a list of names with additional details next to them and a brief description of the world. Han looked through the various descriptions and saw that there were some that were on Earth, but with slight changes to them. Thinking what it would be like to visit those alternate realities was slightly tempting, but deciding to go someplace he's never been was his goal. Selecting fantasy, magic, and early development, the list of names changed drastically. Of the names listed, Han glanced at the world called El-Tron. A description emerged. El-Tron is a world that is similar to what many would consider a fantasy world, with ogres, elves, humans, beastmen, and other creatures. Also, El-Tron has a steady flow of mana, so magic is widely used and practiced throughout the world. All the main creatures can use magic, while many of the animals don't have this ability. There are many similarities to Earth, such as with some of the animals and civilization styles, but there are enough differences to make this world an excellent choice for those looking for something new and different. Many of the civilizations are still in their infancy, so there are no issues with overpopulation. There are several continents on this planet, and similar to Earth, there is an abundance of both fresh and salt water. If you're the type of a person who enjoys watching and reading fantasy-related entertainment, El-Tron is the world you should visit. The description was pretty entertaining, like going to a store to purchase something and having the salesperson convince you about the benefits of the product. Feeling like this would be a great first world to visit, Han pressed on El-Tron and confirmed his decision. He felt a slight woozy feeling, and the room seemed to morph and change around him. Everything around him went black, and he felt like he was floating in space, though he had never experienced what the endless void above them felt like before. After what seemed like a couple of moments, everything around him seemed to be changing again, like it had in the restaurant. Various colors were coming into focus, and slowly, Han was standing in the grassy field under a clear blue sky. Looking around, he couldn't see anything aside from the immediate area. Wishing he had a map, Han brought up the menu to see if he could figure out where he was at. After bringing up the interface, he noticed a new option, Map. Thinking this was very convenient, considering how he had just wished that he had a map to view, he selected it. The map that came up looked like something out of a video game. It showed all the continents and various countries, though some of them were called kingdoms or empires. Seeing a blinking red dot, he assumed that this was him. Han was inside of the Helios Kingdom. Focusing on the Helios Kingdom made the map zoom in so it fit the screen. There were various villages, towns, and cities scattered throughout the area, with what looked like the capital city away near the center. The dot indicated that he was near the edge of the kingdom, somewhat close to a village. Part of him wanted to head over there, but considering the amount of walking he would need to do, he decided to look at the menu some more. Now that he confirmed that this wasn't all just a hallucination, Han decided to check what other abilities there were. The system seemed to be adaptive to his wants and needs, so he thought what else he could do. Bringing up the menu again, he selected Create, and saw several options appear. There were a lot of different options he could choose, one of them being Shelter. This brought up various structures he could create. Seeing Stronghold as being one of them, he tapped on it. Various strongholds appeared on the screen. Considering how he wanted someplace where he could feel safe, he looked at the selection and thought about one that was impenetrable. He wanted something that would never let armies be able to invade it, regardless of ability. Slowly, a bunch of images disappeared to be replaced by a handful of selections. Comparing each of the examples, he decided to choose one that looked like a giant vertical rectangular block. If you took a skyscraper and removed the windows and covered it in concrete, this is what it would look like. Based on his requirement, this didn't look like something that could be invaded since it didn't have any openings. Judging that there must be some way for him to enter, he walked towards it. As he reached the structure, Han imagined an entrance for him to enter. On the face nearest to him, an imposing staircase and doorway appeared. This is extraordinary, he thought to himself. Walking up the stairway and entering the structure, Han saw a long corridor appear with marble columns on either side spanning the entire way. There were opulent globes that lit up the whole passage. Looking down, Han saw that the floor was completely smooth, like polished marble with gray veins throughout the level. There didn't appear to be any spacing, like the entire floor was created from one giant slab. The walls and ceiling looked to be obsidian and contrasted perfectly with the level and columns. Thinking about it, Han wondered if he needed to bring up the menu if he wanted to change anything. When he was approaching the building and thinking about an entrance, the building modified itself to his thoughts, so he believed it wouldn't be far-fetched to try changing parts of the structure. Looking at the globes, Han thought about hanging golden bowls filled with fire. The orbs then shifted to his thoughts, making the corridor look imposing. Walking down the hall, he wondered what else he could change in the structure. At the end of the hallway was another staircase that rose up and split to either side, likely leading to the next floor. Reaching the second floor, Han saw there were various supporting columns throughout the level. Aside from the columns, there wasn't much else, and looked rather dull. Each of the columns had a similar golden bowl on each face of the column. Feeling like it seemed rather empty with just him, he wondered if he could create something to help him. Just to test his ability, he imagined a hand floating in front of him. It would be as smooth and white as porcelain, with long, slender fingers. He pictured that they would belong to a beautiful woman. As his mind imagined the hand, he saw an actual hand starting to take shape. Just like he pictured, the isolated extremity looked stunning, like those belonging to hand models on commercials, but several times better. Han looked at the hovering hand and thought about it being alive. Slowly, it started to twitch and began to move its fingers, as if it was testing what it was capable of doing. Seeing that he was successful, Han thought about how it had a decent amount of intelligence, and after waiting for a couple of minutes, he said, "Shake my hand." It floated to his outstretched hand and shook it. Han was surprised by how realistic it felt, especially how he could imagine that a woman was shaking his hand. There was a clear difference between how a guy's hand and a woman's hand felt, and this hand definitely felt like it came from a woman's. Releasing his grip, the extremity went back to floating in front of him. Imagining it being erased, he swiped his hand and made it disappear from existence. After testing out that he could give life to his creations and seeing how difficult it was, Han decided to try creating someone to help him out. In his mind, Han pictured a beautiful woman around 5'6", slightly shorter than him, with flowing brown hair, slightly wavy, and an oval face with a dazzling look. Her body would be considered voluptuous, having gorgeous breasts and ass, with a somewhat shorter torso and long legs. If someone from Earth saw her, they'd probably think she was a high-class escort. As her body began to appear in front of him, Han was definitely impressed with his imagination and glad he looked at plenty of adult content. Who would have thought that watching porn and hentai would help him create a woman from nothing? With the woman standing in front of him, Han began to alter her character stats, giving her a very high intelligence and making sure she'd be completely loyal and devoted to him. Learning from his prior mistakes with women, he was definitely not going to mess up with this one. Han pulled up her stats on the menu so he could tinker with it. After changing some things around, he finally completed her profile. There were probably other things he had forgotten, but he figured he would be able to change it with this broken OP system he had. Closing the system, he willed for her to awaken and watched as her eyelids lifted and showed a deep purple iris. He realized that he was holding his breath, seeing how amazingly beautiful she was. From now on, you will serve me and fulfill all that I need for you to complete. I have created you to be everything I don't have the time to take care of. As time goes on, you will develop a personality that will help me to complete all that I wish on this or any other worlds. He addressed his hopes to Helana. Helana looked at him, and once listening to his wishes, she dropped to one knee and exclaimed, "My creator, your wishes are my only purposes, and I will complete them without fail." Seeing her kneeling in front of him, without any clothes on, made him think of some pretty indecent things, making him realize that he would need to have her put on some clothing. Though he wouldn't mind her walking around in a nude the entire time, Han figured he should give her some kind of outfit for when they explored this world. Being the otaku that he was, Han thought it would be appropriate for him to create her a basic maid outfit, though the kind that's more on the revealing side. "You will put those on," he ordered her. Looking at him and then the clothes, she began to put them on, though with some initial difficulties. With her high intelligence, Helana was able to quickly figure out how to put on the outfit. After clothing herself, she exuded sexual appeal as if the world was her plaything and men were her playthings. The clothing perfectly outlined her figure, and her breasts seemed as if they were going to pop out of her outfit. Having the skirt just short enough, a person could see her delicious thighs. Feeling that something was missing, Han realized she needed a sexy collar and made one materialize around her neck. "You look beautiful, Helana," Han told her as he looked her up and down. Getting back onto her knee, Helana said, "My creator, I do not deserve such praise." Walking towards her, Han lifted up her chin to look at her face. He saw she was blushing slightly and wondered what was causing this reaction. "From now on, you will not refer to me as creator, but as master. I do not need others to know about my ability." "Yes, my master," Helana responded, gazing up at him. Walking around her to look at the entire area on his floor, he thought out loud, "I wonder what I should do with this place." Thinking about dungeons and games, he chuckled and thought, maybe I should set a maze in here. "That would be an excellent idea, my master," Helana told him. Getting back up, she made sure to stand on his right side, slightly behind him to signify her position and status. Making a drawing table with drawing supplies on it appear, Han ordered Helana, "I want you to design me an incredibly complex and difficult maze." "Yes, my master." Moving towards the table and sitting down at the attached seat, she immediately began to draw out an intricate maze as Han watched over her shoulder. "Make sure to identify suitable locations to place a variety of traps," he reminded her. After several minutes, Helana got up and moved to the side of the table so he could get a better view of her results. Looking at the paper, Han saw an incredibly detailed map of an expansive labyrinth. On the bottom of the diagram, he saw a variety of traps written out with corresponding symbols matching the ones listed throughout the maze. There were pits with spikes, arrows that shot out of the wall, ceilings that would lower and crush, thorns that would randomly appear on different parts of the labyrinth. Just seeing how comprehensive the traps were, he didn't know if he would be able to complete it without the use of his powers. Laughing at how great a job she did, Han placed his hand on her shoulder and gently stroked her hair. "I'm delighted that I created you. You're already performing better than I expected." Looking at him, Helana bowed her head, hiding the smile on her face. Going over to the entrance of the second level, he looked at the drawing again. Seeing each part of the image, he made it into reality. All throughout the floor, walls were being created, and in mere moments the entire floor turned into a giant trap for intruders. Walking over to one of the newly constructed walls, Han lightly tapped the material to make sure it was adequately strengthened. Looking over to Helana, Han said, "Use your spatial magic and transport us to the entrance of the third level." Instantly, the two of them were transported to the entrance of the third level. Seeing the exit of the labyrinth, there seemed to be something missing. Snapping his fingers, Han imagined the image of a beautiful woman with blonde hair and similar proportions of Helana, though with a more athletic body, with horns on her head, and tail just coming out just above her ass. Giving her a bikini-looking outfit made from animal skins, he named her Minotaur, giving her similar stats as Helana, though without the magic abilities. She did have a high defense against magical and physical attacks. He could have given her magical skills, but he felt that intruders should have a fighting chance. He smiled, thinking how intruders would react to a beast woman with such high stats. Seeing her eyes opening, Han announced, "I am your master. Your name is Minotaur, and you must fulfill my will. This level shall be your domain, and you will prevent any intruders from leaving this floor." Minotaur went to her knee. "I shall complete your orders with absolute obedience and devotion, my master. I only exist to fulfill your will." Han found it interesting how they treated him as a god, though considering how he created them from nothing, it was easy to see. The one thing he didn't need to worry about was for them to betray him, like all the other people in his life. Going over to Minotaur, Han touched her shoulder and signaled her to rise. Sliding his hand down her chest, he felt the soft and fulfilling feeling of her assets. He could feel her breathing quickening and continued to grope her. "You are my beautiful Minotaur. I know you will make me proud," he told her in a gentle voice. Removing his hand from her body, Han turned around and continued up the stairs to his third level. He didn't even look to see if Helana was following him. The next level was similar to the floor beneath it. Thinking about it, Han decided to make this level a little different from the previous one. Imagining a sweltering and humid jungle, thick and ancient trees came sprouting from the floor. Wrapping each of the trees in thick vines, a person could barely see brown, instead just saw a jade-colored forest. Smelling the jungle, he felt like he was entering into the Amazon. He pictured giant anacondas, though these had a potent toxin, monkeys jumping from tree to tree, and would throw poisonous spores at intruders, leopards slinking between the branches and the ground, and giant poisonous spiders that would spin massive webs to trap those entering the jungle. Changing the ceiling to look like the sky and the floor to be covered in deep soil, the level honestly looked like it belonged outside and would confuse those entering his stronghold. Signaling Helana, they moved to the foot of the stairs leading to the fourth floor. Like on the previous level, he planned to create creatures that would guard his floor. This time, Han pictured two different women, both drastically different. The first female was a lamia, with jade-colored hair and a serpent's tail. The tail was extremely long, like an anaconda's, and would help her to attack intruders. This time, he didn't provide her with clothes and let her hair partially cover her mesmerizing breasts. Her name would be Annapolis, and her base stats were just as OP as all of his other creations. Her specialty was going to be stealth to help her with hiding from intruders. He gave her an opposing bow that didn't require any arrows and would shoot out paralyzing arrows. The second creation would be an arachnia, so instead of a serpent's tail, the lower half would be a spider's body. Where the head belonged, a beautiful woman's body emerged. He thought it would fit her image to have shoulder-length hair and made it purple. Just like her sister, Anaklis, Orazia wouldn't be covering her beautiful assets. These sisters would be loving towards one another and help each other in protecting this jungle. They would indeed think of themselves as being siblings and work to protect one another. Both sisters were specialized in stealth, though Orazia was closer to being an assassin instead of Anaklis' ranger skills. Orazia, being a spider, was perfect for ability and fighting style, so he gave her daggers and short swords to help her assassinate intruders, while Anaklis would attack from a distance and help paralyze her opponents. Orazia would sneak up behind them and finish them off. Both of them were enough to eliminate any potential threat, but he liked giving them fighting styles. With the size of the floor, it would be effortless for intruders to get lost and become easy prey for any of the numerous creatures. Both of them opened their eyes and bowed before him, considering they were unable to kneel. Walking up to both of them, he reached out and felt their smooth skin. Bringing them closer, Han gave each of them a passionate kiss. The sound of their moans could be heard as the two sisters felt carnal desire towards their master. After finishing his kiss, Han said, "I look forward to seeing how you perform in the future, and hope you'll give your all for me." The two sisters bowed their heads in silence and said, "We shall complete all trials ahead of us, and give ourselves to our master, both body, heart, and soul." Their heaving chests indicate they were still aroused by his kiss, so they continued to keep their heads lowered and waited for the master to proceed to the next floor. Stepping onto the fourth floor, he decided he would need creatures that could quickly form a potent fighting force. Looking back at games, the one that stood out was a Necromancer. Han wanted a being that could instantly summon hundreds of thousands of skeletons and other related mobs to bury those that stood in his way. Though he could easily wipe out anything, considering his broken ability, the imagery of the dead flooding over cities and devouring kingdoms and empires brought a smile. Horror movies were something he was always fond of, especially ones that included zombies in them. Throughout the floor, tombstones, mausoleums, dead trees, and other sinister-appearing objects broke out of the ground and exuded a feeling of death to those who entered the level. When he and Helana were teleported to the exit, Han began to build his powerful necromancer. Picturing a slutty-looking woman with pale skin and white hair, he outfitted her in leather and gave her a broadsword and whip, giving her the name of Queen of Death. He went through and outlined her backstory. Like all his creations, Queen would be completely loyal and devoted to him. The only difference with her necromancer skill was how she wasn't weak to holy magic. She could in fact use divine magic, which was weird and unexpected. The sight of the enemies surprised and horrified when she shrugs off such attack would be a sight to see. Laying his hand on her cheek, Han said, "My beautiful queen, you are not only in charge of protecting this floor, but you are also in charge of my armies." Glancing to his side, he quickly created 100 creatures that were formed from shadow and looked like ninjas. Looking back at Queen, he informed her, "These creatures shall be your responsibility, and in addition to myself, will be controlled by you. They are created for the sole purpose of espionage roles. You will lead armies of the dead and swarm over all those who stand in my way." Not moving away from his hand on her cheek, Queen looked dazed as she said, "For you, I shall commit any acts as long as it pleases my master." As Han and Helana walked up to the next floor, Queen held herself as she thought about the touch given to her by her master. Feeling empowered, Queen began summoning Death Knights, Skeleton Warriors, and Skeleton Mages. Though the floor looked more accessible than the ones before it, the infinite number of death-laden mobs would overwhelm any that entered the level. Reaching the next floor, Han thought it was necessary to have amenities on this level. He created on one side living quarters, hallways, and other items that made it look like an opulent hotel. On the other side, Han created a dining area that put any Michelin-star restaurant to shame. With the wave of his hand, Han created 100 maids that would make sure his stronghold would look immaculate. Another wave of his hand created numerous chefs, sous chefs, waitresses, and other related food industry workers. With his ability, Han easily created a room that would generate all necessary food ingredients. The entire kitchen was filled with fantastic cooking equipment and tools to help the cooks prepare the meals. With each creature on his floor having the job-related skills and abilities, there wouldn't be a need to concern himself with the maintenance of their stronghold and allow attention to be dedicated to more interesting tasks. Though he created living beings from his thoughts, Han wondered whether this translated to actual food. Sitting down at one of the tables, he motioned one of the waitresses to come over. "Bring me a noodle dish with meats and vegetables in it," he told the waitress. "Yes, my master," she answered, curtsying. Waiting at the table, while his food was being prepared, Han wondered what his endgame would be in this world. Was there even an endgame? Could this experience be like one of those MMORPGs that continued in perpetuity? The beautiful thing is that he could consider himself to be an administrator and play by his own rules instead of living to the tune of some major corporation. He thought back to all those light novels, manga, and anime that involved an OP character and how often they would have some kind of restrictions placed on them. With a wave, a beautiful rose slowly came into existence, looking flawless in its unnatural origin. Would any of those people who create those various mediums have their main character be this compelling? Those people were probably too concerned about their consumers and not wanting it to be too dull. The rose being held symbolized the infinite possibilities with the current power. "Helana, I create this for you to match your beauty." He raised the rose to let her take it from his hand. Trembling hands reached out towards the dazzling flower. "My master, I do not deserve such praise." Helana's voice quivered with emotions as she took the rose. Han didn't acknowledge her anymore after the rose was taken. His thoughts were filled with plans for the future. Footsteps could be heard as the waitress and chef approached him, presenting his meal. The waitress placed the dish in front of him and stepped away, waiting to hear his verdict on the plate. Materializing some chopsticks, he started to sample the dish. The food reminded him of various regional dishes, a hint of Japanese, Korean, and Chinese all mixed together. Everything appeared to be perfectly cooked and made him want to continue eating more. Within moments, Han was drinking the soup and emptying the bowl. "It was delicious," he said to the nervous waitress and chef. "We do not deserve your praise," both of them shouted out, bowing nearly 90 degrees. Acknowledging them, he got up and continued towards the stairs that led to the next floor. With how many levels created, Han decided this would be the last one. The nice thing about his ability dealt with if he changed his mind, he could just make modifications to the structure. With the security set up, it was unlikely for intruders being able to go through the 3 floors in the stronghold. Though it looked decently sized from the outside, each of the floors were the size of a large city. It felt like something out of a particular Time Lord TV show, where the inside was more significant than the outside. There could be nearly an infinite number of floors, and the outside would still look like a decently sized skyscraper. All his creations could teleport anywhere within the structure, so he didn't need to worry about some kind of transportation system. If one was built, it would likely detract from the image being conveyed. Arriving on the last floor, Han imagined a long hallway similar to something in the royal palace. On either side of the corridor were statues of beautiful women, some of them in erotic poses. There were chandeliers repeating down the center of the ceiling, looking like they were created out of diamonds. The crystals, glittering due to the lights, took his breath away. Walking down the hallway, minor changes were enacted, entirely based on his current mood. When he decided that he had walked a decent amount of time, Han imagined a hellish-looking French door opening made out of something similar to granite. Each door had an image of a beautiful woman, one of them looking like an angel and the other looking like a devil. Both of them looked like they were in pain, but their facial expression looked as if they were experiencing pure ecstasy. Around the necks was a metal collar, with a chain running down this collar to where the door handles were. The size of the doors was enormous, but slightly smaller than the hallway. He was hoping that gave a sense of awe, as if someone was arriving at this entrance. Behind these doors would be a grand throne room, making any old throne room look like a linen closet. The doors opened as Han walked towards them and let him see the splendor of it all. If a guy were to have a throne room, then this is what it would look like. There was a short hallway that led to an opening. On either side of the hall were fountains with magnificent statues. Listening to the sound of the water made everything feel relaxing. A red carpet led to a raised floor with an opulent throne sat on top. The throne was made out of a mixture of obsidian and marble that looked like something out of the Roman Empire. Arriving on the throne, Han sat on top of it and made it mold itself to make it comfortable for him to sit on. The feeling would be similar to a gelatinous seat that was formed enough but let him lean on either of the armrests. He could probably sit on his throne for days without feeling uncomfortable. In front of him, off to the side of the red carpet, Helana was kneeling with her head bowed. "What do you think of my throne room?" he asked her, curious about her response. "It is a fitting room for such a powerful and benevolent ruler. Truly fitting for our Creator who rules us all." She spoke in reverence without lifting up her head. "Come to me," he ordered her. Han watched as she gracefully rose and walked over to him. She appeared like the embodiment of sensuality. His arms would probably break from him patting himself on the back so hard. As she stood in front of him, he was curious if she should react to sexual stimuli. Placing his hands on either side of her hip, he pulled her close to him. With how submissive she was, he felt himself becoming aroused. He pictured Beth in his mind and felt anger rise up from deep within. How could she cheat on him like that? Imagining how much she enjoyed fucking Sam made Han want to prove something. Leaning back on his throne, he looked at Helana and commanded, "Remove your clothing." Helana's breathing became faster as he could see that she was becoming turned on. The way she was beginning to remove the maid outfit exuded waves of sexuality, overshadowing anything experienced on Earth. Even porn couldn't compare watching the lithe movements as the front portion of the outfit was carefully removed, the way her breasts slightly bounced and jiggled after being released from the restraining outfit. Her hips tilted somewhat to allow the skirt to fall to her ankles. Aside from her hair and eyebrows, there wasn't a single strand of hair on her body. It was completely smooth and sensual in its appearance, with how her exposed flesh radiated her desires. "You did such a good job, my beautiful creation," Han whispered into her ear. She moaned in pleasure and cuddled into him. They both sat on top of his throne, basking in the afterglow. From how happy he felt, a part of him realized this was the need therapy to get over what Beth did to him. A portion of him just wanted to sit here forever and enjoy this moment, but another wanted to see what the kingdom looked like, the one they were currently in. Deciding to wait until after he rested for a bit, he leaned his head on Helana's and went to sleep, a smile on his face. Lazily waking up, Han noticed Helana intensely looking at him with love. Her expression looked adorable, the way she smiled, likely remembering the way they joined and lost themselves in bliss. Appearing like a newborn fawn, Helana forced herself off of him, walking over to where she previously was in front of the throne. Kneeling, she lowered her head while completely naked. "Master, I am unworthy of the gifts you bestowed upon my lowly body. Please, allow me to continue to serve you faithfully until the end of time," she pleaded, her voice overflowing with emotions. The way she was loyal and devoted to him made him happy. For the first time in his life, there wasn't a need to worry about those he loved and cherished betraying him. Han was incredibly thankful for gaining this ability. "Rise, my beloved creation," he told her and watched as she rose and showed him a face dripping in fanaticism. Often in other religions, the gods would come down to a mortal plane and bed a human woman. Han wondered if he could be compared to those gods, who would lead to the creations of famous demigods. A thought appeared and brought about a curious idea of whether she was capable of giving birth. "Helana, you will summon all of the floor protectors to appear in front of me," he ordered her. "Your will shall be done, master," she answered. She then opened up her own personal menu to alert each of the floor protectors to appear. Shortly after, the doors to the throne room opened, announcing the arrival of his creations. It seemed like they were somehow already ordered themselves, with Queen leading them at the front. Their order looked to be based on Queen being first, Anaklis second, Urasia third, and Manitoria being last. Though Han didn't specify which sister was older, it seemed like the eldest sister title went to Anaklis. They gracefully approached him and lined up opposite of Helana on the red carpet, kneeling. "My beautiful creations, my floor protectors, I wish to impart my desires onto you," he told them in a commanding tone. "Your desires are a reason for existing, master," they answered. Nodding his head at their discipline, he said, "You four were created to protect our great stronghold. Each of you will report to Helana, who shall be in charge of all of you. I shall soon be going out to explore the rest of this world." Hearing that he would be leaving the stronghold, all of them, including Helana, began to object. "Master, please, you must not leave this paradise," Queen implored, her face looking distressed. "Yes, master, I agree with Queen," Helana spoke up, begging him to see reason. The rest of the protectors also nodded their heads to signal their thoughts. The way they feared for his safety really helped to mend his broken heart. Even his best friends didn't show this much concern for him. "I will bring with me both Helana and Queen. The remainder of you will stay and guard the stronghold. You all can communicate with me regardless of where I am. This includes each of you to one another. Before I leave, I'll be eating my meal, and while I'm eating, I want each of you to create 10 minions that will work under you. If you need additional time, just let me know. These minions will be restricted to 80% of your power. At the end of the day, you will lose the ability to create, so I expect you to be completed with this assignment well before then. Since both Helana and Queen will be coming with me, you two will be given additional time once we return," he said to the two. Again, addressing all of them, he continued. "Also, You will have the ability to entirely alter your floors to whatever you desire. You'll be able to create new structures or what you feel is necessary. These skills will be permanently given to you unless I decide you do not require them anymore. Finishing, he then signaled to Helana to dismiss them. Aside from Helana and Queen, the remaining floor protectors walked out of the throne room and off to complete the task. Looking at Helana, he alerted her. You should also get ready for this journey. Let one of the waitresses know to bring me the dish I had a while ago. I found it to be very delicious. I will be in my chambers. He got off his throne and walked to the side where a doorway appeared. Entering it, a long hallway was viewed, similar to a prominent hotel back on Earth. He imagined the door on the left side wall, picturing the inside to a luxurious suite. The end of the hallway was a French door leading to his chambers. Memories of a room he had the chance to stay in gave him inspiration in regard to the decor. The only difference being how he pictured the forest to be outside the windows instead of a skyscraper sea. Entering his chambers, he was amazed by how picturesque it looked. Thanks to a friend, he had the chance to experience staying at such a grand location, which is also where he had met Beth. It was at such a time where he hung out at a bar while hanging out with some friends when he was drawn to a figure. She saw him looking at him and walked over to say hi. Talking about themselves and the type of nerdy stuff they were into led them to be pleasantly surprised. As the bar was getting ready to close, she hinted she wanted to spend some more time with him, inviting her to join him in his penthouse. He got to see an adorable reaction. Her blown away at how luxurious everything looked. A comment was made about how she felt like a movie star. Prominent memories of them spending the rest of the night on top of the bed, fornicating like rabbits. Seeing this room again did bring back some painful memories, but then he remembered how loved he was by his creations, which helped him to calm down. Going to the central area, he sat down on one of the many leather chairs and reclined back. Thinking of the past, he heard the sound of knocking and figured it was the waitress with the meal. Lifting a finger, the doors into the chambers opened by themselves, allowing her to come in. Light tapping was heard, and soon she was walking into the central area. The waitress was the same one that previously had served him his meal. Since he randomly created all the supporting staff, though making sure that they were all women, he was pleasantly surprised to see her again. The bowl of noodles was placed in front of him, steam rising up from the freshly cooked soup and noodles. She stepped back, waiting for him to finish. Looking at her, Han saw that she was lovely. She wasn't voluptuous, but gave that feeling of being the kind of waitress you'd want to flirt with and have a wild night in bed. Her breasts weren't as large as Helana and the protectors, but were of a decent size. The outfit helped in enhancing her figure, letting him see her valley between the breasts. Have you named yourself yet? He casually asked before lifting noodles to his mouth. No, master. I know some of the other servants, waitresses, and chef have named themselves, but I decided to wait until I found an appropriate one, she answered while bowing her head. Continuing to eat his noodles, Han pondered about how she looked similar to the waitress at his favorite Asian restaurant. You'll be named Brittany. Also, you'll be my personal maid. Your duties will be to organize the maids to maintain my chambers, bring me my meals regardless of where I am, and fulfill any other needs I require from you. You will also only answer to me, no one else. He commanded her. Brittany's face blossomed with happiness after hearing his words. Bowing her head, she answered, I will do all you require and offer up my body, heart, and soul to you, master. He continued to eat the remainder of the food while feeling a warm, fuzzy feeling inside of his chest. Being a guy, it was always a nice feeling to have a beautiful woman make such a declaration to him. Though it may be slightly different, considering that she was created by him instead of being a naturally born woman. It made him think of movies like Weird Science, where the characters designed the perfect lady. This led him to thinking about how self-awareness was one of the main driving forces of being human. So it didn't really matter if she was naturally born or created. Getting up, feeling content from the delicious food, he told Brittany, "Inform Helana she should be waiting for me in the throne room. Aside from your duties, I'll message you if I have any need of you." He cupped her cheek with his hand, feeling her smooth skin and the faint warmth of her blushing. Placing his hand on the back of her neck, he pulled her towards him and gave her a deep and impassioned kiss. The way she received it was like she was welcoming it, even using her tongue. The two of them passionately kissed for several minutes before he pulled away and walked out of the room.